Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School of Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants a Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Damn. Said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail. Hello again. It is your ever-loving Uncle Fish back again with another School of Fish art stream. And this time we are blessed to have my buddy T.S. Luther on because the normal time for bickering beards is going to be Thanksgiving. And I figured, being a family man, he might have a little something going on that day. So I decided to be nice and not make him come in, but he wanted to come in and hang out anyway while we're working today. So welcome, T.S. How are you doing, man?
Hi, I'm TS and I write comics, and I am sleepy and tired. Thank you for giving me next Thursday off because nobody else did. I'm super excited to be eating all of that turkey and having like 3 different business meetings because I don't know if you know this, but international partners don't celebrate American Thanksgiving.
Curse on them and their houses. Yeah, it's a thing. I forget, I deal with a lot of people that are like in England and Canada and Europe and the Philippines, and they don't have the same issues, the same times that we do. And then, I don't have some of the same problems they do because, there have been a couple of times I've messaged my flatter. I'm like, hey, those pages are taking a while. What happened? She's like, oh, it's the rainy season and we got flooded out and all the internet is down. I'm sorry. I can't upload the files for a few days until the waters recede, and I'm like, "Oh damn, yeah, you take care of you. I'll be fine. The funny books can wait. Yeah, stay safe."
I'm always so amenable to whatever people need because it's oh okay, I'm gonna take those meetings in the morning and then I'm gonna go cook Thanksgiving dinner with my family and in-laws and stuff. So it's it's not really a problem, and I try to be at least a little understanding because I worked in corporate for forever, and they weren't understanding at all. I worked on Thanksgiving, Christmas, they never gave a crap. So this is wonderful. They're like, hey, we know it's a holiday, but can we sneak in an hour meeting at 9 a.m.
Can't you come in for at least half a day? It's only Christmas. Your kids are young. It's not like they're gonna remember it anyway.
Oh God, you're so sweet to think that they asked, and not just threatened.
Look, the kids are only there for the presents. They don't really care if you're there. Just set up a camcorder. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's fun times.
And nowadays, I take the meetings because I'm I'm going to get paid if I go and do this consulting thing. They asked if I could do it Thursday. I could say no, it's Thanksgiving, or that hour I'm going to let my kids sleep in because they don't have school that day. I could go make some money. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. See, that's my thing, and it's kind of become a problem. But, for those who don't know, who've never met me before, welcome to the School of Fish. I'm disabled. I have a pretty severe case of Tourette syndrome. I'm doing good now. It's part of the reason the art stream is in the morning, because I'm a lot less ticky in the morning. You should have seen me last night. It was a hell of a show. But, a lot of times, by the time my wife gets home from work and stuff, I'm in pretty rough shape. I'm pretty ticky. So, I'm not very effectual after dinner at, say, getting up and raking the leaves or, getting up and doing the dishes without breaking a bunch of stuff. We have plastic dishes for a reason. So I'm not going to be a lot of help for, say, folding laundry at that time because I'm so shaky. But if I hyper focus on a page, my tics will subside for a little while and I can focus on a page and I can make a little more money to pay the mortgage. So I do that. And the next thing you know, I work until bedtime. And now it's every day I work all day long until bedtime. And it's a little bit of an issue. Today's actually our anniversary. And of course I'm working. But we did get up early. We went to Honky Bucket. That's not the name. Cracker Barrel. And we went to the Honky Bucket and we got breakfast and came back, and now I'm going to do the show, and then we're going to do some other stuff around the house, and we're going to do chores on our anniversary. But got to do what you got to do. That's a romance of married life, baby.
Happy anniversary! Thank you so much for spending it with me.
Oh yeah,
the most
absolutely.
important
You're
person.
one of the 2 people I'd want to spend my anniversary with. Oh, and speaking of working on my anniversary, this is a page that I'm working on for Fresh Monkey Fiction for the Eagle Force line of toys, which I freaking love. They've done such cool stuff with this obscure action figure line from like the 80s, and the original guys were die-cast metal, and they were like the size of GI Joes. And I don't know if the copyright on them lapsed or whatever, but anyway, the guys at Fresh Monkey Fiction have the rights now to reproduce this toy line, and they've gone nuts with it. And they have expanded it into all kinds of other properties. There are homage characters to all of your favorite, properties. Like, there are homage characters to the $6 Million Man and, things like that. Like, there's characters like, okay, wink, wink, I know who that is. And there's like a whole lot of like indie comics characters have got brought into here. They did a version of how they did Halloween Boy as part of their Howling Commandos kind of, inspired team of monsters and stuff.
So rad.
And they just like ran into him at a con and like, dude, this is cool. And they were chatting and next thing you know, he's got an action figure, which is freaking awesome. I've been blessed to get to work with these guys because we've got some friends in common, and they hit me up because they'd hired a buddy of mine to do some of the art for the front of the cards. They hired me to do a couple, and then they're like, hey, would you want to do the backs? Because in the original ones, the backs had little black and white comic strips printed on the back of the card. And so they're imitating that, and we're doing full color now, which is fun. And so I get to do all these different comic strip backs for all these different random characters. And a lot of it's like army guys, and then sometimes it's sci-fi stuff, and sometimes it's just weird. But like this one is for the Star Commanders, which is, a whole line where Eagle Force has gone into outer space to fight. And you've got this awesome, like mutant chimp as the leader of the team. And then all these different, agents in their outer space costumes and stuff. This has been so much freaking fun to work on. Like, some things are particular, like, I can't just like make up stuff a lot of the time.
Sure.
Because like it needs to look like the gun that comes in the pack with the guy. Right. So it has to be the right weapon, or, they need to look like the action figure, so the details have to be right, and I can't just like freewheel, what I think is neat. So that there's a little bit of real particulars in that, but in this one in particular, Fresh Monkey Fiction hasn't made any vehicles or anything. There are some old vehicles like that they used to make, and so sometimes I put those vehicles like the Jeeps and the tanks and the jets and stuff in the background or in the scenes, or like somebody's a pilot, so they have to be flying that jet.
Right.
But they haven't even thought of making vehicle designs for the Star Commanders. So I got to create all of these spaceships, and I got to be creative, and I got to like think of like, how would the enemy ships be designed, and how would, if this is the line from the 80s and stuff, like how would a, jet star fighter thing look? And it was so much fun. So I was spitballing ideas out to him, and I was like, what if the enemy, because the enemy ships are piloted by, spoiler alert, if you haven't been exposed to the toys of the Eagle Force line, Captain John Eagle is like the leader of Eagle Force, and he has like a pet eagle and stuff, and he's got a cybernetic arm, and he's really cool. He's the good guy. These guys that are coming in from an alternate dimension are led by an evil version of him. And so I was like, what if we did like, the Star Wars Empire meets Judge Dredd, and we went like real heavy in the Eagle theme in the ships and stuff. And he was like, yeah, man, go with it. So we've got this giant like Eagle themed Star Destroyer thing coming through with the Eagle themed ships. And then And then I was like, I really liked the folding wing jets of the 80s, you know, when they were really playing around with the shapes of the jets and stuff. So I was like, okay, we're going to put like these two giant boosters to help get these things into outer space. And then, you know, the wings can pop out and the missiles and the whole 9 yards. And I put way more work into this than I probably should have, but it's fun. And oh, I'm excited.
And also, that's why you go and hire Mr. Fish from Mr. Fish Comics, is because you know he's going to put thought into it. I can't like tell you how many times I go, hey, Fish, I got an idea for a thing. What would you charge for this? Or how long do you think it'll take? And like 5 minutes later, I got a full, like, he calls it a sketch, but this is basically a full finished piece of artwork. I remember when I messaged you about doing a pinup for Helena Bash #1. And I was like, hey, maybe Yeti Man or something. And you're like, yeah, sure. I'm going to spend way too much time on this. 2 hours later, the most gorgeous piece of artwork to come out of the entire comic book. And you're like, yeah, I wish I could have put more time, but, you know, I have other things to do.
You know, I enjoy doing what I do. And that's the fun thing. Like Bill, when we were talking about this, I was like, are there any designs for these ships? Because if there are, I need to match it. And he's like, no, do I need to come up with something? And I was like, I'd be glad to, you know, have fun with it if you don't mind. And he's like, yeah, go nuts. And at this point, he's come to trust me because he knows, like, I do cool stuff. That's why he keeps coming back to me. The one thing I did realize, I was telling TS before the show, I don't have the inking brush I was planning on using on this computer that I stream from in this office. So I'm going to create it really quick. So I've got a new layer made, and the expression of color is set to gray, which this is your main color, and this is your sub color here. So whatever these colors are set to over here on this side of my screen, it'll be using them for this. For some reason, I have my colors switched around. So I'm going to switch that just because it makes my brain work better. But whatever I build this in, from whatever is transparent will remain transparent in my brush. Whatever is white will be whatever my secondary color is. Whatever is black will be my first color. And then whatever blends will be a blend of that. So like it works really well. Like one time I made a grass brush where like one side of the blade was black, the other side was white. If I pick two different greens and then go throw that brush across there, I get really cool shaded grass that's like a little darker on one side, things like that. It comes out really cool. Some people do really complicated stuff. I don't tend to go crazy with it. But anyway,
well, that's why your stuff is on time. And some people, I get like messages about a cover I requisitioned, 3 years ago going, hey, can I get a few more months on this?
That's not the shape I want. So anyway, I'm trying to recreate a brush that I designed the other day, and I liked the way it was working. I built my own angle inking brush that I did a video about and posted on my Patreon. You can go watch it there. That was very similar to this, but it had a much rougher texture to it. And I added paper texture and stuff, so it gives a much rougher, looks like it's been inked on paper kind of vibe, which I like. But everything else I've done for this series so far has had a very clean line to it, hasn't had like the rough edges. And so I want to keep that look, but I want to get the benefits of this angled shape to the brush that I've been getting. So I'm going to build a brush now with a cleaner shape. And so now that I have basically the shape I want, I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to click up here for register image material because I set it into my menu bar. If you haven't added it to your menu bar, you would just go to edit and then go down to register material image, and this little screen pops up. And as I've said before in my other videos, I always start the name of my brushes with fish so that I can find it easily. And I'm going to name this one Sharp Angle Inker 02 because I already made another one and I want to keep them straight. And then I click on use for brush tip shape. And then I choose a save location. I go to all materials and then download. I just like keeping them all in that folder because it's easy for me to find if I put them all in the same location. And I don't have to click through a bunch of menus to get there. So that's nice. And now I'm going to take a brush that has been working really well. And let's see, do I have my first angle inker in here or not? No, I don't. Guess I do. All right. I'm going to copy that angle inker, duplicate the subtool, and I'm going to name it Sharp Angle Inker. 2 is fine because it's the second one I'm building. And now I'm going to go into Settings, Brush Tip, and where it has this rough triangular shape in it, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click up here, Fish. Cuts me down to all the brushes that I've made, and then Sharp cuts me down to the one on this computer that is saved with that name. And it's not flipping horizontally or vertically because I don't want it to do that. And let's see how that, whoops, on transparent. Still coming out a little rough, so we're going to go to stroke and we're going to take that gap between the times that it prints it down as far as we can. It's still coming out a little rough. I'm betting set weird somewhere.
This is why the people come, see how the sausage gets made.
Yeah.
I too am a professional, so I am also working over here as you set up your settings. I'm drawing SpongeBob because I got commissioned to draw SpongeBob last week and I forgot until now.
Oh man. Oh, that. See, and those that are in the know that I had a heat stroke years ago and I've got some brain damage from it. And usually it's not really an issue, but every once in a while, like I will just lose a week or a day or, sometimes even a month. It just like there wasn't a tape in the VCR when you hit record and it just doesn't click for whatever reason. It sucks, but it's just a part of life. And usually I can roll with the punches and it doesn't bother me that bad. And if my wife is telling me about something that happened and I don't remember it, well, okay, I'll take her word for it. She has no reason to lie to me about her and her mom raking the leaves in the front yard and burning them. Even though I don't remember that happening, I'm going to trust her that the guy with brain damage forgot. She's telling me the truth. But like 4 or 5 times this year, it has come into a job where like somebody asked me to do something and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that 100%. I'll work on that next month when this job's over or whatever. And then somewhere my brain's just like, nah, we didn't need that file. And I just completely forget that we ever talked about it. And then they're like, hey man, you were supposed to do this for me. And I'm like, oh crap. And that's embarrassing to me. That hurts my feelings. That makes me feel bad in myself. Even though I know I can't really help the brain damage, I'm trying to work through this part of it that, I can't help it. And I do everything I can to try and make sure it doesn't happen, but sometimes it still does.
I've only ever seen it once. We had a conversation about some book that we were working on. And, we went into all these details. We came up with some good stuff. And then it didn't get picked up. I think we were trying to pitch it for a contest or something. And I was like, hey, let's recycle those ideas we had for that contest. And you looked me dead in the eyes. You're like, listen, I'm going to tell you about my stroke because I have no recollection of this contest, of us working on this. I'm sure we did. You have no reason to make it up. But you're like, but you can try to remind me all you want. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, it stinks, man. It really embarrasses. It doesn't bother me in regular life that much, but it really bothers me when it hits in business.
Sure.
And I was thinking through this the other day as I was talking it out with my shrink, and I was like, part of it is so much of my business I do is with people like over Messenger, so they're not like talking with me personally and hearing like in this we can see each other's expressions. You can hear my tone of voice, things like that, and you can tell I'm not an idiot, just by like the way we're talking to each other. I'm not a fool. I just, and I feel like I'm missing that part in text communications with people I've never spoken to face, never talked to on the phone. Sometimes they're new clients, and now I'm having to explain, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot. And I feel like I'm being irresponsible and stupid when I know I'm not. It's adding shame to something that doesn't really need shame added to it.
Right.
But, such is life.
And that is why you have a shrink.
Yeah. Helps me work through, helps me see things from the outside and not always be, stuck on the inside thinking, oh, everybody hates me because, I messed up. And like, nobody said that. No, that's not true. You're adding that on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so nice to have somebody on the outside that can give you a healthier perspective on things and, know when to challenge you on stuff and be like, oh, come on, that's not true. Or that's not your responsibility, or you can't change the way people feel about something. And, oh man, that's good stuff to have. I appreciate her. And my shrink's a little bit mean, which is part of the reason I picked her. Because she will straight up call me on BS. She is not afraid to, say, nah, that's not true. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
That's why you pay her the big bucks.
Yeah, I'm telling you. All right, there we go. Just a little bit of stabilization to it. So we were talking the other day, speaking of behind the scenes conversations, and we were talking about all the projects you've got coming up next year, and you let an awful big number drop for the amount of books you've got coming out, man, which is pretty impressive for anybody, much less an indie creator, man. How many books you got coming out next year?
Right now on the docket, I have 10. And that number could go up by the end of the year. So, like, as more things get assigned, more contracts get worked out, more dates get, like, cemented in. But right now it's, like, 10 officially, but it could go up to, like, 14 to 16. And
Ooh, son.
It's wild. You work in indie comics, and if anyone's ever seen anything that I've done, you could possibly have read 2 things from me, and that's it. But, the things that they don't see behind the scenes is we're never just sitting on our thumbs. It's like, you might have put out Caw 3 this year, but did you just work on Caw 3? Did you just work on Green Zone 3 and Alice 1? No, you worked on like 40 different things for a million different people, and not everybody sees what's going down. If you're doing it just for yourself, it's really hard to do. You got to spend a lot of money. And a lot of our indie friends, like when you first jump in, you go, I think I want to release all 6 issues of my indie book and then put out the trade this year. And everybody laughs in the room, right? Because we're like, listen, you're going to put out 1 issue and you're going to be impressed that you got that far. Because it's freaking hard. And that's what I did the last 2 years. I put out like 2 books. Hellion and Bash is going to the printer as we speak. As soon as I get off the phone with you, I got to sign the contract so they can print the book and ship it to me. And that's all well and good. The problem is if you're doing your job right and you're talking to all these publishers and all your other indie friends and you're making plans and you actually follow through and write the shit that people pay you to do, sometimes the stars align and that stuff actually gets made, and eventually it will go to stores. And that's what's happening next year. Is like, I made a deal with Invader for 4 issues of a book called The Digger, and they were like, yeah, we want it. And Hellion and Bash did well at Kickstarter, so I started talking to a buddy of mine who was starting a publisher, and he'd been really excited about it. He likes comic books and was looking into things, and he was like, well, do you have other stuff? And I was like, well, I have this book Tokyo Fire I did the year before on Zoop, and it would be really cool to do more of that. And he said, hey, what if you were like our flagship titles? What if we did Hellion and Bash and Tokyo Fire? And I'm like, sure, like an issue. And he was like, no, like 3. So I needed to get 3 more of those. So that was 10. And then I made this deal with Alex from Lucky 33 Comics and all those awesome dudes to do the face for them, which is like an old timey character in their superhero universe. And like, listen, I can keep talking and talking, but you get it, right? Like they keep coming. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, don't give up, because if you don't give up and you're doing the work, eventually it starts to pay off. I did 2 books, and that has turned into 10 very quickly.
That is awesome. I mean, I'm intimidated by the thought of 10 books, but then I'm so used to doing everything by myself that I'm like, whoo, that is a lot of work. But, you know, that's the nice thing about like being able to hire teams and stuff to work on stuff. Is, you know, you don't have to do all of it by yourself, but it's expensive and it's a process, and you know, you've proven yourself now, so it's easier to get some backing and some help and get that stuff done, man. I'm super proud of what you got going on.
I appreciate it, man. And it's because like working with people like you, like there's something that some of our other indie friends talk about sometimes too, which is like me and you specifically, we get brought up a lot because we love this. This is awesome. This is the coolest job we've ever had, but we do treat it like a job. I think we get more of the work and we do more stuff because it's not a hobby for us. It is fun, but it's not just fun. Like we get up in the morning, like you said, you got up early so you could hang out with your wife on your anniversary, so you had time to go do more pages.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that we do. And also, I want to say the only reason why I can do 10 books next year is like I partnered with my friend Sam, who's working on the Digger with me, and we did that out of pocket. I didn't have to pay him. He didn't have to pay me. We partnered on that, and we did 4 issues, hoping someday some publisher would want it. So we did that kind of like on a hope and a dream. And then when it comes to the issues of Hellion and Bash, I pay for that out of pocket. But when I partnered with this new publisher, which I think I can say their name is Professional Entropy, like they're coming soon, but you're not going to find them anywhere yet. They offered to pay for the next issues out of pocket. So not only does my artist get paid, but I also get paid. And once you have a company backing you to make books, it becomes really easy to get them done because you don't have to pay for everything out of your wallet, which is real sad right now.
Dude, yeah. Oh, tell me about it with an anniversary and,
and Christmas
coming up, and oh man, I everything I've done for my wife for our anniversary, I'm like, just remember I love you, because you know it's the thought that counts. Because right now that pocketbook has been tight. I am super glad this job came along when it did.
Yeah.
Because whew. Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
Can I ask like how you ended up getting this gig? Because I know you've done stuff for action figures and for other like 80s properties and stuff before, but as you were telling me about it, I'm Googling around. I'm like, this is so cool that this is coming back, and all of the references, they're all old guy references. We were talking about the $6 Million Man earlier, and I'm like, do people even know who that is? Is that just us? And there's some fervor for some of this stuff, and then you're doing these pages for like pack-in, right, for the toy. Like, this is just so cool. This is like my childhood. How did you end up like linking up with these guys?
Again, like you were saying, it's about the friendships and the connections that we make. Because like I had said, I knew several other people who whose action figures and stuff or characters had been turned into figures for one of their lines or another. And partly when they were trying to get going, and they were looking for people to support them and support their fundraising and stuff on Kickstarter, they were reaching out to more indie creators and more people on DeviantArt and stuff, and like, hey, could we do your character because you're pretty popular and stuff like that? You know, people like
Okay.
Steel Wolf. So could we do a copy of your Steel Wolf character? Because they've done a whole lot of action figures like the old DC Superpowers line, you know, where you would like squeeze their feet and they would punch or whatever. They don't have the gimmicks, but they're like that style of action figure. They fit in with those real well. And so like a lot of people that I am friends with had got their characters in that line, and they're also big action figure supporters and stuff. So they're already big action figure collectors. So those were the guys that they wanted to reach out to when they were trying to start out. And so we had a lot of friends in common. So
I gotcha.
They heard a lot of good things about me because these friends were hiring me for pages and hearing about, you know, what a good job I did. Or they would be complaining with their friends about like, oh, we can't find anybody that will actually, you know, get pages in on time, and, you know, or can't find anybody that will stay with the work for more than a page or two before they drop out and stuff like that. And people will be like, oh, well, if you need somebody that's going to get a job done, you need to call Fish. And so it, like everything in the world, really, it was just about knowing the right people, having the right friendships, and got lucky and kind of fell into it. And I'm grateful that I have, because it's been a whole lot of fun and has opened up some possibilities for more stuff. Some of them haven't paid off yet, but like I got the chance to, you know, through some of those friendships, pitch like a superhero to AccuWeather at one point.
What?
They didn't take it, but I got to pitch a, you know, a weather themed superhero character for, you know, like the kind of thing that would be put on promotional materials and stuff. And
I want to see a Fish superhero telling me the weather when I'm at the gas station. That sounds like a dream. I would actually watch that.
And you know, I've gotten the chance to, I've gotten real close to some really cool jobs because of those friendships and stuff that I've made, and it's really neat. I love the community of friends that we've built out here. And you know, like some of those dudes that, you know, mainstream comics may not have heard of, like if I ever got tapped to work on something big, I know the people I'm taking with me. The people that I'm like, oh, okay, look, like I would love to do this, you know, ongoing series for you, Marvel, but I'm bringing this dude along to help me write. And I'm bringing, you know, because I know these people rock it and I know they do awesome stuff. And they've always been there for me. So like, why would I not be there for them when the time came?
It is like part of it. Like people don't understand, like the message I get a lot from some of our friends is like, well, when you make it big, don't forget about me. I'm like, number one, I think that road's a while down. You know, I'm not even connected to that highway yet. But also it's like, yeah, forget, it's not like you make new friends when you break in. Like those friends are the ones that help you get the gigs. Stuff like I've only ever been referred. No one's ever found me and been like, hey, you're the guy I want to hire for this thing. It's like, no, I heard of you through Fish, or I've talked to Lucky 33 Comics or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's only ever been word of mouth and, you know, friend of a friend type thing. Luckily, if you do good work for your friends, they do bring you back for stuff. And they do hire you for things. And, like, you're always the name I throw out when it comes to, like, hey, if you want the job to get done, because I hear about that a lot where it's like, well, I just can't find an artist. And I'm like, I don't think that that's true. And if it really is true, let me help you out with that. I think a lot of times it's, hey, I couldn't get an artist to do this for free. Yeah. And no one's ever heard of me. And I didn't know how to start the conversation. That's usually the issue I hear when they actually get to the heart of it, because
I offered them 1% of the toy rights down the line, and they just didn't want to accept that. And I think that was a pretty generous offer, because I'm going to be bigger than the MCU. And Like, oh, sweet summer child. No,
I
that's
wish I had some of the delusional confidence that
oh
comes
my
up
god.
in like negotiation. Like I've had people offer me something. They're like, "Listen, I'm going to pay you this, but I want you to know I get the movie rights." I'm like, "Listen, pal, you can have them because what movie?"
Yeah, that and all the sequels. I don't care. That's absolutely fine. More power to you, baby.
I was in a negotiation recently for a book that's not out yet, and they were like, "Listen, like the one hang up is like we can't share movie rights. Like we had it was going to be this percentage, but really." You'd be lucky to get any of it because we're going to do all that legwork. And I'm like, number one, no one's going to buy the movie to one issue of a comic that I wrote. Like that's not happening. But number two, listen, if you took it and ran and someone made a movie of it, that's only going to help my career. I have nothing right now. You're offering to pay me and then maybe someone makes a movie out of it. Keep the movie money. That's fine. Like if Uwe Ball makes this instead of the next like Tomb Raider movie, that sounds rad. I think people might be able to hire me after that. You can have all the cash.
Absolutely. You know, maybe somebody will hire you to write the screenplay.
Right.
You know? Hey, no problem, man. Happy to help. Like, yeah, I'm largely not worried. And I used to would have worried about it a little bit, but after talking to you about that and really thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not in that big a danger as somebody coming in and, making $1 billion off the Green Zone movie franchise. So, if it helps get the project out there so more people see it, cool. I would be disappointed if it got like a Netflix deal and got canceled after one season, in the middle of an arc or something. I would hate that.
But like the thing is it's not crazy, right? Like I joke, like no one's gonna buy a single issue movie, but like that does happen. I've known people that it's happened to. But like it's only gonna help our career. And also I used to stress more about it when I thought I only had one idea, right? Like I used to be worried about people stealing it or the deal I'm going to get on it. And then I wrote another comic, and then I wrote another comic, and then people, you know what? Nobody bought the original one I was scared of, which was Hellion and Bash. If I want to get candid, nobody wanted that comic. It took me selling 3 other ones to other companies before anyone was interested in this random new superhero story I was telling about. Nobody cared. So, I stopped stressing about it. And in my opinion, I wrote better stuff since. And I'm still super proud of that book. And it's only gotten better as I've gotten to work on more issues. But it goes away. That fear stops. I don't have people sign NDAs. I used to tell artists that they couldn't share anything on their socials. And now I'm like, tell everybody everything. Try not to spoil the next issue if you can. But, share it with everybody because you kind of realize that no one cares. And not in like a no one ever, but like in the grand scheme of things, in all of media,
it is not as big a deal as we're hoping it's going to be to anybody else but us. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Right. Like, it could still, it doesn't mean it won't be cool one day. It doesn't mean it might not get us somewhere. But like, most people don't know like Kirkman's first books,
Battle Pope? We're going to talk about Battle Pope for a minute? Like,
people don't know that.
Like, no one talks about Battle Pope or Science Dog or Tech Jacket even, which it kind of came out after Invincible, right? Like that's exactly the point. I was talking about Matt Fraction the other day because like he was an indie darling. And you know what people talk about? They talk about all the stuff he wrote way after the fact. No one talks about those really early indie books. They like talk about like his run on Hawkeye or something. And because he didn't stay in that one sector. And that's where like I'm proud of the stuff that we wrote. I always think of like Alice, right? Green Zone is freaking awesome, and Caw is the most fun I've ever like had writing in a world and working with you on that. But when you brought up Alice, I'm like, this is better than anything we've ever made before. And like, it's not that the other stuff was bad; it's just that Alice was better. and we had way more ideas with it, and we had come so far. Like, you were a better artist when you started drawing Alice than you were when you started drawing Green Zone, and it helps that you were amazing beforehand. But like, it's just, you can see
and there's like 100 books in between,
right? But like, it's just as easy as, this was the next thing that you did, that I did, that we worked on, and it's easy for it to be better than the last thing. So once you have a few more stories under your belt, you stop being so precious with it, and to the point where, like, I never understood when I first started working with you. You'd throw out ideas and you'd be like, you can have that one. And I'm like, okay, but like, this is your idea. And you're like, I got a million of these things, you know?
Oh my God. I've got a folder full of ideas that, you know, and the funny thing is, every time I get a new idea, like I was telling you the other day, I woke up with a brand new idea and I wrote it down real quick. And then I was like, oh, that's not as original as I thought it was. But after I told it to some other people, they're like, oh my God, you absolutely need to do that. And I was like, you know, okay. But like, when I went to put it in that folder, in that list of story ideas, I came across so many great original ideas that I was reading for the first time. And I'm like, who came up with this? It's my folder on my phone. I just, you know, I come up with them and then I forget them. And then I go on to something else because, you know, I've got the main things that I'm really actually working on.
Right.
And then, you know, there's everything else. Like the idea that Alice started as, I was so protective of for years and was so jealous of and didn't want to share too much of because I was afraid somebody was going to steal what was really my first. It was my first truly original idea that wasn't a like, well, what if, you know, like one of my characters from the world of Green Zone that people will see in the collected trade is Capital Punishment. And he's this like bitter old hero from this world. And he was absolutely me asking myself, like, what would it be like if you crossed Captain America with the Punisher? Mm-hmm. And, you know, if this great old World War II hero was, you know, a racist like most of the World War II heroes I knew growing up and, you know, wasn't a great guy and was dealing with, you know, now he's dealing with PTSD and all this other stuff. He's become a more interesting character over the years than he started out. But it was really just, what if he was a badass, mean old dude? And that wasn't an original idea. I was taking two other things and mashing them together. The story that Alice started as was my first, like, this is all me from my imagination. This is the things that I personally love and, you know, brought into one story. And I was super jealous and protective of it and didn't want to tell people because I was afraid they were going to steal my idea and all of that stuff. But like we've all heard many times, nobody else is going to do it the way I would do it. Even if they stole my idea, it would be something completely different than what I would do. And I had so many ideas growing up, and then I would get so mad because I was convinced that this was the story that was going to get me into comics. And then I would walk into a comic book shop and I would see that very story on the shelves with nearly the same name and the same costume. And I would be so mad and angry about it that, you know, at one point I thought people had to be watching me and just stealing my ideas. And now I realize, like, they were all being ripped off from the same source. Like,
right.
We were all being uncreative and, you know, taking ideas from the same thing. And we all ended up at the same point. And, you know, what was The Traveler was my first original thing that was mine. And boy, I was jealous, but it's so much better now. And I'm so much freer with it and have been able to make changes to it and twist it around into being something else that I never could have done 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I never would have allowed who is now Rabbit in this story, to be a secondary character. He had to be the main character. He was the focus. He never could have been a side character and let somebody else take the stage. But it's such a more interesting story with Alice as his adopted daughter taking the center stage.
Yep.
And I love it so much more now.
And there's so many things like that it's like even letting me work on it with you, right? Like I don't know how you would have been a few years ago, but I can't imagine you would have been like, yeah, I mean, write whatever you want on this story. Like, what are your ideas? Because it was like, it's your baby. It's the same thing. Like I now have the privilege because I have several issues coming out and like I need to fill quotas. I'm like, hey, like, can I get a backup from this person? And I can't imagine years ago giving somebody else pages in one of my books, not because I wouldn't want to share, but I'm like, but I need those pages. I need that spotlight. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, nah, here, take it. And same thing with ideas, right? Like how many times have we helped other people with their stories that like, we're not going to write, we're not going to draw on.
Oh man.
You have them, you know?
A buddy of mine, hit me up to, basically just body doubling, just,
mm-hmm.
Hey, let's hang out in a room together and work on this story idea, this script that he was having trouble with plotting out. And I legit, like, I brought so much of the plot to this book as we were talking it out. I was like, I'm absolutely putting this in my count of books, even though it's just like helping plot it out. He's like, oh yeah, I'm putting you in the credits for sure. I'm like, this is going on my count. And it is one of the coolest freaking stories that I have ever worked on. It's going to be one of the things I'm most proud of. And I'm not even the writer. I'm not even the artist. Like, I just sat down and helped him plot out the book. But it is such a cool story. And because we were collaborating and he brought his ideas in and then I could take them and get bigger with them and be like, but what if we did this with it? And he's like, oh man, that's awesome. And he wasn't so precious that it has to be my idea. It has to be my way. He let me have fun with it and I got to play in his sandbox with his toys. And it was so freaking awesome. And the finished product is so much better than either one of us could have gotten alone. And that's the thing that I've really learned in my time working in indie comics. Like, I know I'm different than a lot of people, and I know that like not everybody in indie comics can just kick out ideas the way I do or create new characters the way I do. I know I'm not like everybody else, but the thing that I've really learned is how much fun it is to collaborate and how much cooler a product it is we can make when we are collaborating together and not just being super precious with like, no, that's not the way I pretended it. And, when we can let everybody have fun and everybody play, we get so much better stuff.
I think about, so like I had pitched you a story, like we do a lot of trades. It's like, hey, I'll write this for you. Will you draw this for me? We do a lot of that stuff. And I had pitched you a story. I don't want to like give away too much just because I am working on selling it right now. But it was mostly horror with a little bit of comedy in there. And I was like, here's the thing. And you're like, hey, I took it in a completely different direction. I really leaned into the funny aspects. I can listen. You're like, I can draw it the way that you wrote it, and like these dudes are cool,
absolutely,
and everyone's muscular. But like you had pointed out, you're like, you have something really funny here. If we lean into that, it'll be better. And I know sometimes I come off as like, no, like I got the ideas, but I'm like, no, everything that you did way better than what I had in here. This is now the story. We're leaning into this. This is now mostly a comedy with some horror in here because every design you pumped out, I was like, this is amazing. This is way better than what I can.
Oh man, I can't wait for people to see that one. I am so looking forward to that because it is so cool, and I am. Like I said, I'm super excited for that one to come out because.
And I guess we can call it like we're calling it Lord of the Manor. It's basically it's like battle royale with the universal monsters. Lots of monsters, that's the whole thing. But I like when I gave this review, because like I had saved it, I'd worked with another artist once. They kind of backed out of the project, and I have a lot of scripts that just sit there until I know somebody who would be good for it. The problem is Fish would be good for most scripts, right? Like he's very very talented at what he does. He knows how to like do the language of comic books, and he can design anything. So like we were talking about the other day when trying to pitch projects, it was like, well, we could turn this into a young adult novel. We could turn this into super scary. We can do whatever needs to be done for whoever wants to buy it from us. And so the problem is, the first thought I have all the time is, well, Fish could do this. The problem is with that is that Fish is very good, and you should definitely hire him. I have $0, and we both have bills to pay. So sometimes when I go,
that's the real problem.
Right. I'm like, I would love to work with Fish. However, Fish needs to get paid. So go hire Fish so I can go, hey, man, do you have enough free time to go work on this book for me? So like, do this as a favor to me. Go hire Fish, have an awesome book so he can have more free time to work with me. Because I'm not going to pay him. I have no money. There's nothing here. The coffers are empty.
I am in the process now, like where when I'm taking jobs, I'm like, okay, how much of that paycheck can I save to like pay myself to work on the things that I want to do, like do cool stuff with you and work on my own books. Cause like the mortgage still has to get paid either way.
Still has to.
Like they are so inconsiderate. Like they don't even care. Like if I got paid, they just, they want their money either way. And so,
and this is why we do it as a job, and I think that's the funny thing is like we do get a lot more work, and like I don't pale in comparison. Again, hundreds of books, people. Like he's about to pass over 100, and a lot of those are his, but most of them are other people's whose books look amazing because they hired Fish. And it happens because you're like, listen, the bills still have to get paid. You still want to have the longevity. You gotta make it work. And when I talk about doing 10 books next year, it's not all like magnum opus. This is my favorite story I've ever written. This is the one I want to do. It's like, no, this is the stuff that people would hire me to write. So I'm going to go do that thing. And it means getting more work because you're willing to do that. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to get jealous because that's what we do. And we have friends that just get to work on their favorite thing that they've ever come up with out of their brains all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could do that, but sadly that doesn't always pay the rent,
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta make money. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And so yeah, it's a tough thing. But that's like you said, it's part of doing it as our job. It's part of taking it seriously. It's part of the reason that we get more work because like people know they can trust you. People know, oh, he gets stuff done on time. He's not sitting around waiting for the ethereal muse to strike, to be creative. Like when we were on our way to the last con, my son and his girlfriend were with me, and she was asking me because she's an artist, and she was like, what do you do when like you don't feel creative and you don't have that inspiration to work? And I was like, you'd be surprised how much having a mortgage inspires you to want to get work done. I was like, being hungry is a hell of a motivator. Like you go hungry one time, you won't want to do it again. And you will find the motivation to work, and partly I think, and I've said this several times recently to people. I was like, if it wasn't for my disability, I probably would still be sitting around wishing I was doing comics instead of actually doing them.
Right.
If anybody, like I spent 15 years in a wheelchair, and then all of a sudden, things started getting a little better and I could try getting some work done, and I decided to try and reach out and start trying to find some work, and nobody was going to take a chance on the guy that, might be able to see tomorrow, might not, might be able to show up for work on Tuesday, might not be able to drive. Nobody wanted to risk that on the guy that had severe Tourette's. And So I was left with, well, I'm either going to starve or I'm going to have to rebuild a freelance business from the ground up. And I decided to take a crack at comics because what the hell? If I got to start from the ground floor, I might as well. I literally was questioning between doing comics or going hard into sculpture and like sculpting figures from like movies and comic books and see if I could get some licensing deals or some commissions. And I was like, it'll probably take me a year to build up a YouTube channel to get enough attention to get commissions. Or I was like, or I might could get some commissions doing comic book work right now. And sculptures take up a lot of room. Comic book art doesn't.
Right.
They store flat at best or on a hard drive. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And it was literally just this storage issue. And I steered into this and I got lucky and made some good friends, and they, really helped push my stuff and gave me opportunities, and now I get to do this for a living. But if I had a cushy day job, I would probably still be doing that, wishing I was doing this.
Yep.
And, for 45 years, there were enough distractions and enough issues and enough, well, maybe I missed my shot. Maybe the time's not right. Maybe, waiting for somebody to come knock on my door and say, hey, I want to hire you to do this, person I never met. And they never knocked on my door. I'm still convinced Marvel doesn't know where I live because they haven't knocked on my door once.
Not even once.
I would at least like the opportunity to tell them no, but no. It's crazy. I just kept sitting around waiting for it to happen, and it just nobody ever walked through that door.
It is one of the crappier things that, like, because people ask me, they're like, how do you break in? I'm like, number one, I'm the wrong person to be asking. I haven't broken in. Like in terms of like gatekeepers, working for Marvel, DC, something big like that. But the other, like, it is literally pay to play, right? Go make the books that you can afford to make in any way that is, whether you want to be a writer, artist, letterer, whatever. Do it in the crappy way of paying your dues, doing it for free, because eventually it will earn you gigs. Like, that's what happened with me. I went broke making comic books, still broke making comic books, but I am now getting paychecks. Fish can attest, he signed some of them. Like, it does work eventually. If you're good enough at it, if you're willing to put the work in. And it sucks because I hate telling people, go do it for free. Don't go, like, until you pay your dues. It is still just that kind of industry because so many people love comic books and want to do it. Your competition is so fierce.
So many people dream of doing it. Like, that's why so many new artists end up ghosting you. They dream of doing it. They don't know how hard this job is.
No.
And
once they start doing it.
Once they start doing it and they realize, oh crap, like what I charged is nothing. And I'm never going to make any money at this. And then all of a sudden they ghost you. And, it sucks. But that's why I always recommend hiring somebody who's done it before because, they know what they're getting into. I remember, like, when you first messaged me and sent me, like, such kind words about, how much you liked my work and I inspired you and you were going to start doing it. And would I read some stuff that you had written? And I was like, oh, here we go again. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at it. Sure. I'm a nice guy. I'm a glutton for punishment. Sure. Yeah, I'll look at it. I look at your knockoff of that one Justice League story. Sure. Why not? I have nothing else to do. I'm not trying to make a living. And I admit, I came in with it with about that much excitement into reading the script, and it was for Hellion and Bash. And I was so freaking excited by the end of the story that I was A, a little bit mad that I wasn't the one drawing it, and B, a little bit mad that you wouldn't take my suggestions, but like, I understand you already had pages like being penciled and inked and stuff, but like, I was like, but, I should be doing this. And, and it was so good. And I've been so impressed with everything else I've seen from you that, like, that puts you high on the list of people that I wanted to work with. because like you did good stuff, and there's a whole lot of people out there that do stuff and do a lot of it, but doing good stuff.
It's different.
You really enjoy, you know, like I always brag on Thomas Moran whenever I'm talking about stories and stuff that I like, because I really loved Beats. I still think it is one of the best like first issues of a comic I've ever read.
1,000%.
It hops into the story so quickly. It gets you interested and engaged. He shows you. He doesn't just sit there and tell you. And like, it's really well done. And I brag on it all the time because, you know, the stuff that we find in indie comics that we can't really brag on is kind of thin sometimes. So
Right.
I'm gonna take every opportunity I can to say, hey, this one is good. This is something to pay attention to.
And Thomas does it differently too. Like, I got a chance to write a couple of scripts for him. I'm trying to develop a series for him, and I was like, "Listen, I know you're indie. Like, I'm going to write this for you." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to pay you. Like, I also have gone broke making comics, and I'm going to keep doing it." And he has a whole universe over there that he writes some of it. Like, he's got 2 or 3 that he writes, but then he pays writers and artists. He's put together creative teams. He's got a whole little Stan Lee type like situation going over there as an editor for his universe as well. And it's really cool to see in the indie space because not a lot of people are doing it. And he actually got up for a couple of awards last year and like definitely deserving. And
Oh yeah.
I just wish that he had a bigger like social media following because like he does some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his stuff, which is also part of why I always brag on it. Because I mean, you never know what's going to help get somebody's eyes on something, but people should definitely be checking out his work. And you know, and that's one of the things that I'm always telling new creators, like at cons and stuff, when they ask me, you know, about how to get started and what to do, and I'm like, you know, make a comic, get them printed cheap. You know, there's so many cool digital printers that you can use, like Kablam or Comics Wellsprings. Get a few copies. Go to your local show that's cheap and, you know, isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg to get into, and give it a shot selling them, because there's so much more involved in this than just being able to make an awesome comic. I mean, you're going to learn a lot by making your own comic, and it's going to have mistakes and it's going to suck a little, but that's okay because they all suck. And, you know, all of our first issues have problems, and, you know, that's part of the gig. You learn from them and you won't make those same mistakes again. You'll make all new mistakes.
That's right. Every time.
And, you know, get out there and see if you can sell them. Because, like, I know so many people that write really great comics, but just cannot make a sale at a show to save their life. Like, either they don't like crowds, or they are too shy to, you know, want to reach out and talk to people. I've been to so many shows where people just sat there face down on their phone while I'm trying to engage them in conversation, like asking them how much their book is and stuff. I want to buy their book, but they won't look up from their phone to answer me. And eventually I'm like, I'm not just going to put random money on the table and walk off with it. If you're not going to sell it to me, I'll leave, I guess. But, you know, it wasn't because I wanted to. I wanted to buy it, but they weren't good at that part. And that's something that's better to find out cheap.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, we don't have a product that people really want yet. You got to show them why they want it is part of it. And like, because we're not Marvel, we're not DC, you're not handing them Spider-Man. And that's why, like, a lot of the tips that I give on like writing and stuff, it's the stuff that's worked for me, because I have to convince people to open the book. You don't have to do that with a Spider-Man comic. You still got to do a good job once they get there, because they're going to complain about it. But you don't have to sell somebody Spider-Man. They get it. They know why. That's why they bought it. They don't know why they bought Green Zone. They don't know why they bought Hellion and Bash. They don't know why they should. And that's our job. That's what we got to do. And it's a big part if you want to work with publishers. Now, I haven't been able to get into the room with a lot of like giant publishers, but I've been in the room with a lot of small ones. And it's the same idea. You're still selling them the same way you would at a con, at a person trying to buy it. Sometimes it's harder because they're going to give you a lot more money potentially than the $5 someone's going to buy your book for. So like, it's a big part of it. You got to learn it.
They're not buying it because, Green Zone was their dad's favorite comic growing up and they always read it to me. So like, I'm such a Bellamy and I just, I really want to. No, that's not why.
No.
They don't have that exposure to it. There's not that machine pumping out, all the videos and the animations and all that stuff that they grew up on. And like, oh well, I fell in love with Green Zone from the comics when I was a kid. Or, oh no, I fell in love with the animated series. Oh no, I fell in love with the live action series. No, there is none of that. Like, we have to sell them on why it's cool, and that's the fun part, and it's the hard part, and not everybody's cut out for that. So I'm always like, it's better to find that out quickly and cheaply than applying to San Diego Comic-Con and spending thousands of dollars to find out that you're awkward and you don't like talking to people.
It's why, like, I love when I get like comments of people saying like why they don't like Hellion and Bash. It happened a lot in this last run up. In like my comment section, they're like, well, I don't like, it seems like that dude's kind of like Batman and I don't like Batman. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great because I don't like Batman either. That's why he's a bad guy in this book. Now they're interested, right? Or now they're still like, but he's still in it. And I'm like, okay, buddy, this probably isn't for you. And that's good. Get the nose out fast and keep going, because I'm not going to convince that guy to like this version of Batman and to convince him why mine is different, why this is a different story, why it's not just a knockoff. Like, that's... You're not going to be able to do that, and you need to be able to figure that out really fast and keep going and find the people that will buy it. And it's great practice to talk to people who hate it. I know it's super scary. You're going to be afraid, but the worst thing that they can say that matters is no. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and you're going to get no's, man. You're going to get so many no's.
And like, some people can't handle that. And if you can't, then this is absolutely not the gig for you.
Right.
Like, it's the whole thing with being an artist in this. Like, you're a professional artist. You are doing work for pay. You're not, this is not a piece of my soul and my, expression. And if you want me to change the look on his face, then you're taking my soul and trampling it. No, this is a freaking job I'm doing, man. I might as well be raking somebody's leaves. Like, if you want them raked into a pile over there, fine. If you want them raked into 6 different piles, fine. I don't care. I'm gonna draw the coolest version of this story I can possibly draw. If you want something different, then I will absolutely give you that, and I won't say boo about it.
Every time. Like, I always say, I'm like, listen, if you want me to tell you why you're wrong with the edits that you gave me for what you wanted, I will. But you're paying for this. So if it makes you happier to change this word to that word or to move around this or that, we're going to do it, because I need to make you happy, and then I need to make an awesome comic book because you're paying me. And comment sections, they're not paying you. People on the street who aren't interested, they're not giving you money, and that's not going to get you farther in the game. But you can take that moment and learn something from it and keep going, and maybe incorporate that into the next gig. Like, it's a learning experience, but you can't sit with the criticism and take it harshly, because you're not making art purely for yourself. It's a capitalistic endeavor. If you want to make it in comic books or any sort of like industry art, like, you gotta be able to change it on the fly. You gotta be able to accept that they're not gonna love it first draft. Like, and there's gonna be people mad about it in the comments no matter what.
Oh man, every time. And I remember I had a really hard time when I first started working in like production art at a sign shop, and like, I would sit there and want to argue with people about why this was right and why it looked better. But people would just always want like ugly signs.
Yep.
And eventually I had to learn to be okay with, like, some people want ugly signs, and if they want an ugly sign, then I will give them the best ugly sign I can. I will try and, help them make a good decision, because I want their business to succeed. Because if their business succeeds, then that means, we're going to get the job for the next sign that they need or whatever. And if it fails, then we're not. But if they're determined that they want an ugly sign, I will give them an ugly sign. And that was a hard thing to come to terms with originally, but it's the nature of the beast. And
it's the gig.
Yeah, that's where the customer is always right comes from, is the customer is always right in matters of taste. Not just across the board, not just, oh, your time should be worth 50 cents an hour. No, you're not, the customer's not right in that. But in matters of taste, okay, sure. If you want to paint the outside of your house Pepto-Bismol pink, let's do it. If that's what you want, that's what we will give you.
And that's part of like the skill that comes from it too, is sometimes making something good in spite of what they wanted. And like I've sold people my comic book on a different idea. It's the idea that they want the comic book to be, but I know that the comic book is going to be worth it for them in the long run. So like if they need to find something else, and I'm going to do that. I want to sell books, right? I don't want you to buy a book that you're not going to like, but I have a lot of confidence that you are going to like this book. So I am going to convince you sometimes. And I know some people don't like being convinced of things, but it's all part of the gig. And at the end of the day, if I get to make more comic books, that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. So I will do a lot of stuff to make that happen. I always like talk about it on like my TikToks and stuff. Like, if you're taking my advice, just know that I'm a tool. I am not an artist. I am not the guy that's going to die on the hill for the words that I have written. I am the guy that's going to say like, oh, I'm not allowed to use this character because you're going to use them in this movie. You got it. It's gone. It's out of there. I'm not allowed to say this word. Fine. I don't like that word either, actually. You know what? Like, I'm a dad. I got bills to pay, and I want to make comic books for a long time. And so sometimes that comes with changing up your feelings and your stances. There are still morals that I won't do, that I won't write about. I still have that stuff, but that's usually not what people want you to engage in. That's not what they want you to compromise. They want you to say that their idea is just as good as yours, even though it's not. That's why they paid you to do it. But sometimes that's what they need to hear. Yeah,
it's true. And I'm right there with you. I used to think I would have I would have had a much harder time back in the day, like taking guff from like the suits and stuff at corporate, like working for a bigger company like Disney, and being like, oh no, you can't do that because we have a lunchbox plan to launch, in September, and we, that's gonna interfere with lunchbox sales. And I'd be like, but this is integral to the story. This is what gives the story its heart. Now I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I don't think it's as cool, but if that's what you want to do, then that's what we're going to do, buddy.
Exactly. But like, we get to have our cake and eat it too, because that is part of it, right? Like, I hear people like already sounding off being like, well, I can't believe you would do that. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is when I'm writing somebody else's things, when I'm playing with their toys, that's what I'm doing, right? Like, they get the final say because that's what I'm doing. But this also pays for me to be able to make stories like Hellion and Bash where nobody tells me what to do with those characters. Oh, yeah. Nobody tells you what you're allowed to write in Green Zone. And so you can do that if you take gigs for other people. It's hard to do that if you're just doing it for yourself, because eventually you have to kowtow because bills have to be paid. But if you're doing everything for everybody, you can mix in your own flavors on your own side of things while still making a Big Mac for people because that's what they want.
Oh yeah. And like we were just talking about Green Zone issue 4 in private, and Oh, hold on a second. Okay, we're going full screen for this because I'm not taking the blame for this when it happens. He brought up killing a character off that I dearly love. I'm not saying who, and not saying when, but he brought it up. So when it happens, blame him. But that kind of cemented TS in my heart because I've always said since launching Green Zone that, you know, the best part about it is it's my world and I can do what I want. And like, if I wanted to kill Virgil off, I could kill Virgil off and nobody's going to be like, but the t-shirt sales, like, you know, I think it would be a bad idea to kill Virgil off in the second issue, but like I could if I wanted to, because it's my book and I could do whatever I want. And I want my stories to have stakes. I want it to be serious and not be like, Virgil died, but he's going to come back to life from some crazy, you know.
Don't worry, he'll be back in issue 2.
Yeah, they're going to shoot him into the sun, and he's going to come back super powered. And, you know, like, no, if somebody dies here, most likely they're going to stay dead. I mean, there are some weird characters in Green Zone, so who knows? But there could be some weird zombie power somewhere. But, like, if they come back, it ain't going to be pretty. And then when TS is like, oh, you know what, who we could kill off? I was like, oh my God, that would suck so bad, but I love it because, like, I love the fact that things can have stakes and, you know, the good guys don't always win and things happen. And, like, people are always like, why are you so mean to Virgil? It's like, because sometimes life sucks. And sometimes, you know, sometimes people can't win for losing. And sometimes people can do everything right and things are still hard and you still don't win. And, you know, you come home and you still live in territory controlled by gangbangers and whatnot. Like, you know, not everybody gets a happy ending every time. And that's, to me, that's interesting and that's real and it hurts. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to put in a story. You know, the challenge is making a story like that and making people still want to tune in and care what happens to characters when, you know, like, God, it's hard. You know, it's not going to be easy. You're not going to get your lollipops and rainbows happy ending every time. But, you know, the story can still be cool.
Exactly. When people love Game of Thrones, it's because they hadn't seen a lot of stuff like that. Maybe they hadn't seen something like Sopranos, you know, where it's like, no, there's a main character. Now they're gone. And that's part of why that show was fun for a lot of people. They're like, oh, you can kill off a main character? It's like, you sure can. And nobody tells us when and when we can't. I'm really interested if people do pick up Hellion and Bash, they keep going. Because the one thing that everyone said when they read issue 1, like all the critics were like, it's really fun. And I'm like, I really hope you don't just like it because it's fun, because I don't know if it will be fun every time, because I get to do whatever I want with it, and I don't always want to write a fun story. Sometimes I want to write a story where the main characters get killed off. Sometimes I want to tell a story where it's really sad. And so and that's the other reason why I like working with you, is because when I pitched that, you weren't like, well, nah, we can't kill that character off.
Nah,
you know, the people love him, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, sometimes you got to kill your darlings.
That's what's going to make it sting even more is, you know, oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, I hate it, but I love it.
Well, and that's part of it, right? Like when we were talking about it, Empire Strikes Back comes up a lot when we talk about stuff, and it's because like that ending sticks with us because our heroes lost. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love Empire Strikes Back. Still one of my favorite movies ever. And like I hadn't seen that a lot as a child, and it sticks with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we were also talking, like, you know, you never see the bad guys win very often, and to a point, I understand the larger reason that they always want the bad guys to lose, because, you know, you don't want to be giving kids the idea that, oh, wait a minute, crime does pay. But, you know, like, you don't want to give them that, because, like, I wanted to be a superhero for like a hot minute growing up until I realized there were no supervillains to fight. And then my little autistic self was like, oh, well, you know, there's no superheroes either, so I could just be a supervillain and nobody could stop me. And So I spent the rest of my life as a kid, until I was way too old, wanting to grow up to be a supervillain. And I totally wanted to be Doctor Doom when I grew up. And I probably should have, it would have been nice if I hadn't wanted to do that. But that was who I idolized and who I wanted to be like. And so I kind of understand the reasoning between, not wanting your kids to grow up to be megalomaniacal, supervillains. But also, the bad guys win sometimes. And that's one of the hard things. It's one of the hard things to wrap your brains around as a kid is, but that wasn't right. And that the bad guys won. And why did that happen? Because you always said, that's not the way we do, and that's not the way people do, and that's not how we treat each other. But they treated each other that way, and they won, and they got elected to office. And sometimes, you've got to answer tough questions as a parent. And I want to do some stories where sometimes the bad guys win. Maybe not every time, but sometimes, because it's real life, and that's what happens in real life sometimes, and it sucks. But better to explore it in fantasy.
Exactly, and not everybody who does something bad is a bad guy, and not every bad guy is all the way bad, and sometimes good people do bad stuff, and it's that gray area that makes some stories really interesting. And that's the whole point of both of our superhero universes, is that there's no perfect answer, perfect win for anybody at the end of the day. And that's partly why we write those stories, because if we wanted to write the superhero story where the superhero wins every single time, and we wanted to write it for kids, you already have that. That isn't a book that we would be doing that nobody else has done before. But there are stuff in Green Zone, there's stuff in Hellion and Bash that people haven't done before. And that's part of why they're fun to write about, right? That's also probably why publishers didn't want them, but harder to sell because there's no lunch boxes in it. But
yeah, but it's more complex, and not everybody wants a complex story. That's true. But for those that do, I got some filet mignon for you over here, baby. And come and get it. It's the good stuff.
How's that monkey coming?
Oh man, I love the way his face came out. I did not realize how much I love drawing simians. Man, I freaking love drawing gorillas and stuff. I never drew them as a kid. It was too hard. It was too hard to learn to draw people, much less learn to draw something that looked so much like people but wasn't people.
Right.
That was way too hard a challenge for little fishy to figure out. But as an adult, I freaking love drawing them. And a cybernetic gorilla or something, forget about it. When I realized my buddy Roy that I do the Sentinels for, he's got a main villain for his bad guys named Cyberilla, who is, a cyborg gorilla. And as you might have figured out from the name, it was very subtle. And I freaking love him. He was the main villain right before I took over the series, and then he hasn't appeared in the book since. He was the main villain in the Power Company crossover series that Roy's a part of before I took over. I got to color him in an issue, and then when I took over the art, he wasn't the main villain anymore. And it broke my freaking heart. I have stuck him in every scene I possibly can. Like any pinup I get hired to do, Cyberilla's in it. Any flashback scene from back in the Cyberilla is in it every freaking time, because I love freaking drawing him. He had one issue where evil versions of the heroes came over from an alternate dimension, and then he was like, okay, and we need some made up heroes to come over that maybe were villains or something, I'll let you be creative. Absolutely, there was an alternate version of Cyberilla in there, in gold armor and stuff, and he had gray fur instead of black. He was a total alternate. All the circles were triangles, and he was this I also did an alternate version of Lex Luthor that was named Xander instead of Lex, and had like the red hair that Lex usually has as a kid. Like he had full luscious, like had a big red beard and stuff. And he was like a Lex Luthor Batman kind of dude with all the gimmicks and gadgets, and it was so much fun. But getting to do Cyberilla, even as an alternate version, was so cool. I freaking love him. I never would have thought I'd enjoy it so much.
I always think, like, when I saw you drawing the ape for this, I was like, of course it is, because I think about every time it was the giant spider fighting Superman story ever, is you kept bringing up this giant purple gorilla, no matter what we were talking about, what story it is.
I want to do him so bad.
And I'm like, Fish, what is up with this? You're like, I just need to draw this giant purple gorilla. Like, it needs to be in something. And I'm like, I don't think it fits in this very serious Blade Runner story that we're coming up with. And you're like, but what if it did? What if he was there just in the background?
But what if? You know, I never would have thought I would love it this much, but like I've had so much fun, like learning how to draw them, like walking on their knuckles, and like, you know, how does the hand look? How does the face look? And I'm always doing like a cartoonized version of a gorilla face. Like it's not exactly a gorilla face but I do like study realistic, like interpretations of like the expressions that they make and try and incorporate that and stuff and make it look as real as I possibly can, and you know, while still fitting in with everything else. But I don't know why. I really don't. I wish I did.
We'll come up with something. I know we were talking about doing more pitch packets over the holidays for other publishers, and we need to figure out an in for some sort of like Planet of the Apes type story, just so you can draw like apes and monkeys and other simians and stuff. I'm sure I have something in my noggin for this, just so we can get your purple gorilla on the page.
Yeah, like I really think, like, you know, if I were to ever do Caw through a publisher, and like Caw's a shorter book, partly so I would have something that I could knock out between working on other books, and you know, make it an easy thing to hit for my monthly subscription on Patreon, where you can subscribe for $10 a month to get a brand new comic shipped to your door. Mr. Fish Comics on Patreon now. But like it was partly it's a shorter book, so I could make sure I could get something out every month, and I've enjoyed it so much. But like if I took that to another publisher, I was thinking like adding that Space Ape story to the back would be so much fun, and I could do those quickly, and I think it would be a fun juxtaposition between the like outer space barbarian and like the scientific space knight dude going around saving the day, kind of Space Ghost fashion-ish.
I was gonna say that reminds me of Space Ghost. I don't remember if it was fully in the same, like, you know, 15 minutes of Space Ghost and then 15 minutes of this, but they had a similar thing going on there. But I always loved those double feature stories as a kid. And so, like, having something like that would be really cool. Like, if you split the two of them, of course, then it defeats the purpose, and you're no longer doing a 16-page comic. Now you're doing a 32-page comic. But I always love like having the double stories in there. It's why I'm always shoehorning like backups. Shoehorning is the wrong word because I make sure they fit. But like I'm always putting backups in all my stories, because sometimes the story is done at page 16, and you still need to fill out the rest of the issue, because no one's going to pay $5, $6, $10 for a 16-page comic. And so sometimes you need to put a backup in there. But I love when it's like a different flavor. So like having that Space Gorilla, as much as I give you crap about it, I think that would be a cool fit for Caw, especially.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun together like that. And it's that throwback vibe. Like, it's not for everybody, for sure, but like for the people that would dig it, they would dig it. And you know, I would totally enjoy that, like a Thundercats, Silverhawks, you know, team up kind of thing, you know, Thundar meets Space Ghost or whatever. Like that would be so cool.
It's for the people that understand when we make $6 Million Man references, and they go, "Who?" You know, like if I say I have the technology, and then I make the slow motion run thing, they don't go, "What the hell is he talking about?"
Yeah.
But I was watching it in reruns for the record, chat. Like I was not watching it live like my 100-year-old friend here.
Oh yeah, I definitely watched it live on TV when it came out. Absolutely. Oh, I'm sitting here drawing and I don't have my screen on. I'm sorry.
That's why I had to ask about the monkey.
Oh, I thought you were looking at it, man. I'm sorry. I are just a little stupid. I apologize. I'm sitting there just working away, thinking that you could see what I was doing. But I had to go full screen to, talk about whatever for a second. Got distracted. But yeah, he's come out so cool. And I love drawing a simian. I don't know why.
Because they're rad looking. I love, like, how many wrinkles are on, like, an ape's face. Like, I love how much more, like, characterization you can give
how
them.
Expressive they can be with the larger lip area from like nose to mouth. That gives so much room to be able to like bare your teeth and things like that. And then they have like sharp canines and stuff, so it's not just like a cheeky smile, like it's a smile with fangs. And it's I love it. It's so much fun. Got General Brown in the war room here, and they're all looking at all the incursions around the planet of the bad guys taking over, and here they're busting through from outer space. And where is that panel with the flag? I have so many objects in here now, it's hard to tell where's where. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. I know I got it here somewhere. That's not it. That's not it. Dang, where did I put that layer? I know there's an easy way to find it, but I'll be danged if I remember how to do it now. Oh well. I was going to paint some stars in the background back there, but I can't find the layer to paint them on. Oh man, I just love that. And I kind of love this retro vibe over here of having like all the little headshots, and it has like, each one of these characters being introduced. And it's just, I love getting to do this fun stuff, man. This is a really fun project to work on. Oh, we've been at it for an hour and a half.
Oh man, so, has it really been that long?
Yeah, it has.
That's what happens when we start yapping.
I'm telling you, man, we just get going, and next thing you know, man, the day's gone by. Well, an hour and a half, that's a good place to stop, and I can go spend some time with the wife for our anniversary and everything. Let me save that, because if I don't, I'll lose it, and then I'll have to redraw that monkey, and that would be a shame. I cannot tell you how many times I've lost an entire page of like inks, or an entire page altogether. That's the worst. I had a page fully inked, ready to color, and like my computer crashed, and I had saved it, but when the computer crashed, I lost the save file too. And it's just like, no, nothing that happened today happened. And so I had to go back from start and redraw the entire thing from pencils. That was so disheartening. I did it because I'm a professional and I'm going to get the job done one way or another. But oh my God, I wanted to cry.
Well, that reminds me. Thank you for saying that, because I have not saved this commission that I've been working on this whole time.
I'm telling you, man, I'm horrible about that. I get mad every time my computer auto-saves because it takes a second in the middle of drawing to do it.
I know, you get the circle the whole time. I'm like, I need to be doing something. And usually when it autosaves, I don't know what it does differently, but mine takes longer. I don't know if it's saving like a cache in a different place.
It definitely takes longer.
I got to sit here for 5 minutes while this is auto-saving. I'm like, I have stuff to do. I was in the I had that line just perfect. I was ready.
Mm-hmm. But I have it set to autosave so much because I know I'm bad about remembering to save things. So, anyway, if that's one tip you can learn from us today, be sure to hit save. Stop right now and hit save and save a duplicate copy if you need to, just to be safe. And maybe it's time to do a backup. I'm just saying, never hurts to take a little time and do a backup while you're at it. Anyway, thank y'all for hanging out. I appreciate. Oh, T.S. Luther got something on the screen here. Let's see what you got going on.
This is the SpongeBob that I was working on this whole time.
I wish I could do the laugh because I would totally do it, but I can't.
No, I can't do it either.
It just don't sound the same with a country twang.
And you can see the difference in how much I got done in an hour while yapping and how much Fish got done in an hour while yapping. And why I write stories and Fish writes and draws stories.
Admittedly, I had the pencils done, but I had them done and approved because this isn't just this is a more corporate-y gig. Like, it got to go through more hands, so it's got to get approved before it gets done, which is a whole different vibe for a project, but it's a lot of fun still.
I suppose I do have to send, before I ink this, I do have to send this to the person and make sure that they like it before I spend another hour inking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But it looks good, man. It looks good. There's no question it's SpongeBob.
I'm not sure. This could be Patrick Star. I did Google SpongeBob before I started just to remind myself, but I don't know how to stop sharing it though.
I can do that.
I don't know how this technology works.
I'm uncomfortable with my drawing on screen for too long.
Well, you're doing outros and stuff. You can leave it up there. I don't care. Like, I already got paid half for it, so.
All right. Well, thank y'all for hanging out. Be sure to check me out, Mr. Fish Comics, on all the social medias, and Mr. Fish Comics on Patreon if you want to subscribe for $10 a month and get a brand new comic shipped to your door. Hopefully, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, Green Zone 4 is going to be out for Christmas. Knock on wood. Anyway, so that's where you can find me. Where can they find you, TS?
You can find me on TikTok at TS Luther, and you can find me at campykillcreations.com. That's my website. But also, I have a million different things coming out, so look for me in stores coming next year. Ask them about Professional Entropy, ask them about Invader Comics, and ask them about TS Luther. They're going to go, who? But if you ask them enough, eventually they'll go, all right. Maybe they'll go buy stuff. Hellion and Bash is shipping at the end of this month. So if you bought that on Kickstarter, you're going to get that soon, and you'll be able to buy it on my store shortly after that. But yeah, campykillcreations.com and TikTok at TS Luther. I don't know where we're going when TikTok gets banned in January, but we'll find a place.
Blue Sky, Threads, we'll find some place to go. Which you can find me on too, Mr. Fish Comics. And I just got word last night that one of my buddies got his copy of Allison, so they're already starting to show up on people's doors, which is really exciting. And he automatically recognized a cameo that I stuck in the back. And I was so excited because it's just a little cameo and a little background character, but he's exactly the type of fan that I put it in there for. And the fact that he found it was awesome, and I love that, and it made me very happy. Let me know what you think of it. I'm super excited to hear people's reviews and thoughts on it. Anyway, thank y'all for all your support. Thank y'all for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.